We're on.
Okay, so let's call the meeting to order. I was gonna have Dale introduce himself. We have a new member, Dale Dowdy. He's the Director of Public Works in Lewiston. He's replacing David as a representative from Lewiston. When he comes in, we'll stop and have him introduce himself. Because apparently he teaches with snowbanks right now. You're all reminded that we're being taped and we're on video. And I know I always watch out what I say, but you should pretend that your mother's listening. Okay, so that being said, we have minutes of the last meeting, which is November 14th. The reason it's that late is that we had no quorum a month ago, and so we're meeting this month and we're meeting next month. But the subject at hand are the minutes of November 14th.
I move we accept as presented.
Is there a second? Second amendment. All in favor? All opposed? Abstention? Quarterly financial update. Heather.
Yes, I believe the February 7th one is the top one in your packet, the first one, or is it the December one?
February 7th.
Is first, okay, so we'll do that. Obviously, this is essentially a little bit more than a month into the commission's operating budget, so there's not a lot of activity at that juncture. You will see we had some additional timber harvesting checks that were received, as well as a few of the public education events. I expect obviously there to be more activity by the next meeting. By then I will have Auburn Water District's quarterly charges and so forth. The second financial statement was as of our year end, as of December 30th or 31st, 2018. The Watershed just recently went through its audit. I'm waiting to get draft reports back. Excuse me. But there were no adjustments to this report at all. At this juncture, I think we are now on the last of the 5-year quote. So there was a slight price increase, but I had factored that into the budget with the audit. As you can see, looking at the report, we had a surplus of $95,469.96. Clearly, between the turnover at the agencies and so forth, there wasn't as much activity, particularly in the public education and the educational side that we've experienced in prior years, which was definitely one of the drivers for the overall surplus. The other thing is we had not planned on doing the amount of timber harvesting this year, so that produced a surplus of about $50,000. You can see up in the revenue at the top. And as far as operating side, there was only one conversion or one budget deficit, was in the property taxes, because Minot had switched their fiscal year or their billing year for taxes. So that, well, I hope we'll have that normalized this year. As far as the sinking fund goes, we have cut those revenue streams way back as part of this budget, and we did again for the 2019 budget as well. But we did have a surplus. There was little activity. Typically, we use that money either for life estates, land acquisition, or we've been doing, one-time capital expenditures from that fund as well. And we didn't have any of those three for this fiscal year. So we had a $20,000, a little over a $20,000 surplus there as well.
Any questions? Is there a motion to accept?
We accept both reports as presented.
Second.
Russell seconds. All in favor? Opposed? Moving right along.
One question that she brought up though in her report for future planning, I heard the 5 years that when we to the auditors, so it would be time for us to begin to think about another.
That typically has not gone before the committee. I do quotes in 5-year chunks too, but I can bring that before the committee.
No, I was interested in putting out a solicitation
Oh, I don't. I go through and quote them.
Okay.
For a 5-year period.
Works
Okay.
for me. We're already doing what I was gonna ask. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next is the water quality update and activity report. Erica is not here.
Erica is at, she's enrolled in that municipal leadership program, and today happens to be one of her, there was about a dozen training sessions throughout the year she has to be at, and this was one of them.
So you're pretending to be Erica today?
Yes, I'm also pretending to be Lauren. Lauren, our outreach coordinator, is she's very busy. She's only part-time for us. She normally would have been here, but she is a cross-country ski coach at UMaine Farmington, and I guess the team is doing quite well, and she's out in Wyoming, I believe it is, right now with her UMaine cross-country team, so she couldn't be here today either. But filling in some of the watershed activities that I believe it's in your packet. There's the first 3 pages are updates on the forestry that's been going on. Last fall, it's been a while since we've met, so this goes back a ways, but there's a photograph in your packets of some of the stands of trees that we've been working on. The first one is a 133-acre parcel that's east of the basin. That was completed last fall, and as Heather mentioned, we're certainly seeing timber revenues from these projects. So that one is closed out. This coming year, we will have to go back in and do some remediation of that, some of the looming, seeding, haying of some of the roads skid roads that we made moving in. The next page is a parcel on the west side of the basin that was done this last January, about 30 acres there that are completed in there as well. And moving on to the next one, there's a 40-acre parcel off of Skillman's Corner Road, and you can see that they're starting to harvest now. And the fourth and final sheet is a stand of timber that is, you access off the top lot. There's some stands of wood in there that is going to be flagging. I'm not sure exactly when he's going to start those, but he's starting to flag those for future harvesting. Yes.
Excuse me,
Yep.
are you accessing the previous one from Johnson Road as well?
40 acres.
Yeah, because there's a lot of cut right along the road.
I'm not sure.
There's a road
I'll
in
check
there,
on that.
so
They
I
might
hope it's our road.
off the okay. It's not shown on this map. That side is it? All the way to
No, it
Johnson.
doesn't show.
No, I'll find out for you.
I think she's right. I think they got
Okay.
a landing up on Johnson Hill.
Hey, what?
A landing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And is that our land?
Apparently so.
I'll confirm that. I'll
Yeah,
confirm that
that's
for
where
you.
I was last asking,
That's why I asked.
because I would think it was our land.
Okay. Yep, I'll get back on that. Some of the education outreach events that are going on. I guess I want to ask: are people? She did a good job, Lauren, putting out this Watershed newsletter. Did people get this mailed directly to you? Does this look familiar? This is a good chance to check because this should be going to every commissioner. We're using Lynn Richards' old contact list, and I believe every commissioner was on that list. All the Watershed residents either got it directly or through email. There's quite an extensive contact list, and it's a good time to update that and make sure people are getting it. But this was published, and if people,
I think I got it electronically.
you did? Okay.
I
think I got it
got it electronically, and
Some of you
that
did.
looks like Taylor Pond as well, so that's why I was pausing, because I get a new paper newsletter from them, but I think I got it electronically, right?
Okay. If anyone hasn't seen it, isn't getting it, I want to make sure you're on the list because it's good information.
I've had so many emails, I'm not sure I got it electronically, but I certainly didn't get it in print.
In
Can you
print.
pass it around?
I can, and I've got extras here too. If people, I got 4 here. If people want them.
So can we make sure that they're on our website, that electronic, so you can click and download it?
Yep.
And
It is.
that,
Yep.
and can we make sure, the water district trustees, if they aren't, are on that list?
Yep. I'll check
Then the
at our next
Auburn
at our next meeting. I'll
Auburn
make
and
sure they
Wilson
are.
city councils. Auburn and Lewiston City Councils should be on that list.
Okay.
Keep them informed. Don't know that management passes that information on.
We also print off copies that are available in our office too, so people can.
Yeah, no, I know, I need to get that one. Yeah.
I won't go through everything here, but you've seen it. But there are a number of events that are planned coming up. The most recent one, there was a tree identification seminar that was coming up. That was postponed. That's going to be on April 16th. You can, there's a whole list of events for April and May that are, again, on the commission website. There's all kinds of learning events all throughout the month in there. I think they're going to be a good thing to check out.
For those on Facebook, it's on Facebook as well.
And if maybe they can go to the cities so that they might do that as an alert me, since we don't have that feature. Because not everybody is on Facebook. So this is the February 21st tree thing is the one that got postponed
Yes,
to.
that's going to be April 16th, 10 to 12.
Down at the Salmon Point.
Yes. Yes.
Late last fall, just an anecdotal piece, there must have been several hundred of these birds in front of my house. And there was an eagle who was cherry picking. And he was just picking them up and taking them someplace. And then he'd come back. It was, my wife wanted me to stop the eagle. He was picking up ducks.
Oh,
And so it was an easy picking. I mean, there were hundreds of birds on the water. And he was coming in.
And he doesn't like seagulls, huh?
Probably not.
Wow.
behavior modification.
One thing to review under education, one thing that Erica is tasked with is obtaining an alum permit. That's a major undertaking that we're doing right now. We hope to have it in hand soon. As you may or may not know, we are going to be applying alum to the lake later this summer. We've done a ton of research and met with a lot of the science community, the regulators, ever since last fall after we had that algae issue. And the concurrence from basically everyone was that we need to move forward with an alum application. And there is a copy in your packet here right after this report that Kevin put out. It was just a very good comprehensive look at the history of the lake and why we need alum. So I put that in this packet so you all could see it and the recommendation to go forward with it. So again, I just wanted that for your information.
So, could I ask, what's the process? Is there an approval process for that through the City of Lewiston and Auburn Water District or through this commission? Or is it just something that the district decides?
Well, it's something, I can speak for the Auburn side. It's something that on Auburn, we need approval from the trustees. And I've been updating them every month on where we are in this process. On the Auburn side of it, we need to bond the money in order to go ahead and do this.
Okay, so that will go through the council.
Yes, through the Auburn Council. And I need a formal vote in my next trustee meeting to get authorization to move ahead. Just for the permit and the bond as well.
So for jointly, in the past, Watershed we've treated, there's some discussion of when is the in-lake, is that Watershed or is that on the district in this water utility? And we've kind of in the last couple iterations of this kind of looked at the wet line of the lake as being the boundary, upland being the watershed, and this commission in lake being more of treatment and burden on the utilities. So that way utilities don't fund this and then go through procurement. We go through normal procurement through the City of Lewiston Finance Committee or the Auburn Water Trustees and award. So this originated from staff saying, based on what we're seeing and recommendations, we need to do this to strip the lake and actually do some treatment in lake. So that's why we didn't come to the commission to try to fund it or for approval. So we are doing a parallel track. Auburn's on a calendar year budget cycle. We have a fiscal year budget cycle, so ours was programmed in. We've gone before city council, as you know, and given that update. So it's in the budget request
In the LCIP.
and then CIP, and then we would hope that it would get funded and funds available in June. So it would be right there timing wise to be able to help pay our share of that.
Thank you.
In the case,
Just, oh, I'm sorry,
I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say, in the case of the Auburn Water District, right, the approval is the approval to bond, not the approval of the project. The city
Right.
council only approves the ability to bond.
Correct.
And can they limit the amount of bonding?
Well, whatever amount, I mean, every bond that we've ever taken out has to get approval from the
Right.
city. In the past, we've had bonds of $1 million, $2 million.
But it's not clear whether or not they're approving both the right to bond and they'll just, it's a yes or no on however much we ask, or if we asked for $1 million, can they say no, 500,000?
Well, I suppose they could. I mean, I'm going to bring that request to them on Monday.
We just will wanna be clear on what they're, if it's an up or down, or if it's an up, down, and how much.
Well, the request is going to, like I said, it's going to them on Monday. I'm not sure if they will approve it on Monday or not, but they more than likely would consider it and then approve it at their next meeting, because this is the first that they're really going to see it, is going to be Monday. The next meeting is April 1st. I was talking to the city manager, and that's more than likely when it's going to be considered. They might, after my presentation I'm giving on Monday, they'll see what we're going to be doing, and they might approve it there. I'm not sure, but in either case, it's not really gonna hold up our process.
Except if they say no.
Correct.
So the concern, there's a minor concern that the request for the bond might become an open-ended type discussion regarding the things we've been looking at in the newspaper. And so if you have time on your hands, you might want to attend the meeting on Monday and say hi, for what it's worth. And the newspaper is reporting, I think, reasonably well the activities, at least insofar as saying what, reporting what other people said, some of which may not be totally accurate, but we'll have to deal with that as we go along. Go ahead.
I guess just as a side comment, I know that you're right. There's been a lot written and a lot said. I think the bottom line is we do need, and we all need, and recognize the need to improve communications. There are a lot of things we have in place, but there's a lot more we can do. We have been working on that, so I think things will get better. Moving on, again, this goes back to last fall. As you know, we have several conservation easements all throughout the watershed. Those were inspected. Mention here some of the watershed projects that have gone on. Did a lot of sampling of the culverts along Spring Road for phosphorus. We're looking at working with CV and Mahar, another drone flyover. And we're also sampling First Brook. That's the brook right off Lakeshore Drive, right off Route 4, where we've seen some high phosphorus numbers. So we are planning on focusing on that in the coming spring. Again, this is old. It talks about ice on. I mean, it's almost time for ice off, but back when this was written, it was just ice on. January 14th is when ice went on. And this talks about some of the water quality. Turbidity has been between 0.34 and 0.41 NTU. That remains, that's a very, very low number, and it remains at that or even lower, I think, right now. The water quality is really good. That's how it is in the winter when there's 2 feet of ice on the lake and covered in snow. That's not a good place for algae to be. There were some, we did some midwinter sampling, what was it, 2 weeks ago, Mike? They did that?
Mm-hmm.
Got out there, and there was, at the time, there was at least a couple of feet of ice.
30 inches.
30?
Yep.
Something like that. Yeah, so there's good ice cover right now.
And snow cover. So that helps with the light penetration and not growing algae in the winter, which is a possibility. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, if we could figure out how to keep that all year round, we wouldn't have any issues. So that's it on the water quality, if there's any issues.
I have a couple. First of all, I want to compliment the report that's in the minutes. I love the format of our minutes, and I love this section. I thought we could just lift it out and post it as a outreach and education program for the public. But a couple things. So under watershed projects, the culverts, the other water quality parameters, of course, I don't know what that means. I know what the sampling for phosphorus means. But what was the outcome? Because now we're several months beyond.
I can tell you it's ongoing. I know that there were sediment samples taken. I wish Erica was here to give you the results of those. I don't have those. I don't have the exact numbers of what they found.
No,
There was
if you could just take these questions, I'm happy to do it next month. But that was one.
sure.
I see we're really working at keeping our videos, social media accounts, going to establish Instagram, and we update the website. My concern is that we don't have an alert me or a function for people to sign up if they're interested. You say, well, then go to Facebook, but you have to join Facebook. And I might ask how many people at this table belong and use it. So as we do our communication planning here, we could do something as simple if you're interested, they can get these reports, just add them to the distribution list, or rather than create an alert me function or a sign up subscription function. But there ought to be a way for people who don't have Instagram accounts and don't use Facebook to see what's going on. The city of Auburn did a good job, and I think it's partly there on the alert me's, but anything that appears on Facebook now appears on the city of Auburn's regular website, and some but not all, in my opinion, that's my opinion, when something's posted there, those who subscribe to alerts me's get a notice. So you can see the information without going to a sign up place.
Okay, so we're gonna stop for a second and we're going to allow the aforesaid Dale Dowdy to introduce himself.
Sorry, I was late. Springtime, public works, everything seems to be coming on time. I'm Dale Dowdy. I'm the Director of Public Works. Been here about 2 months and 2 weeks. City of Lewiston, and a new board member.
And you came from
Maine DOT. I've been there for 22 years. Prior to that, I've been in consulting, trained as a hydrogeologist. So some of the water chemistry stuff that Kevin tells me about, I understand. So a little bit.
welcome aboard.
Thank you. I'm excited about it.
You'll get to know us. I think Bethel is sitting in the far end over there. She's an Auburn representative as I am. And then Tiz is sitting next to her, and you might know her. She's been, you have no reason to know her.
No.
She's an Auburn rep.
Water district, I don't know, Auburn Water District.
And Joe Ruby is sitting there, and he was formerly employed by your employer. Are you still employed by the city? In some way?
I've gone to the clean side.
Oh, okay. Steve French is here representing the Upper Valley, Mechanic Falls, and somebody else.
Mine, but we live in
Oh, what's that? Okay, so
mechanical
Lisa.
factory.
At least you would know she's on city council. And Amy back here is the AVCOG representative. And let's see, Thibodeau is missing. He's not well today. And Heather, you know?
Oh, yes, he knows me very well.
We spent a lot of time together.
And you get to know Casey if you haven't met him already, Casey Geiger. And then I skipped over the two clubs.
I know those guys.
Okay. So, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
And now somebody's going to talk about the Ag Zone.
Sure. The Ag Zone Resource Protection Zone Ad Hoc Committee. This is just kind of a trying to get people up to speed on that a little bit. I'm not going to dwell on it, but the Ag Zone study. there was quite a lengthy study done by a consultant last year, the year before. Some recommendations came out of that. An ad hoc committee was formed by the mayor to study it further, the Auburn mayor. And I've got a copy of that in your packet. As I look at it, I think unfortunately I probably get several. As I was reading through it, I think I have several copies of it. I apologize for that. But it's a draft that this ad hoc committee did. A lot of strikeouts and a lot of additions and revisions. The bottom line for that document is it went before the city council recently, and the city council took action to move it back down to the planning board. So there's a new wave of review, and hopefully the planning board will be revising that, looking at it, eventually giving it back to the council with their recommendation. They had their first meeting of the planning board to look at this was actually last night. The next time they're going to talk about it is going to be on April 9th. There's going to be a public hearing portion of the review. They're going to be inviting a lot of different organizations to come and comment on it. I know they've invited the Land Trust, the Department of Ag, Conservation, Forestry, Maine Farmland Trust. They've invited police, fire. And I was talking to Eric Cousins, and he was going to talk to them and invite this board to speak on it as well. They're hoping by May 14th to be able to send it back up and provide some recommendations to the council. The chair of the planning board is Evan Sear. I'm going to be reaching out to him to make sure that we're at the table and involved in the discussions that go on surrounding that. So, I don't know if you've had a chance to read through it, but there's a lot of work to do on this, because there's a lot of changes, and there's a lot, as you know, there's a lot of controversy surrounding this ag zone and what it is and what it becomes. So, I've attended most of the public meetings that they've had on this, and I'll continue to stay on top of it. But if anyone has any questions,
You said it went to planning board. Is it also going to conservation commission?
I
at the
don't.
same time?
I don't.
Because I know originally when the mayor spoke, it was going to go to council and then go to planning and conservation. So I'm happy to hear it's gone to planning first, but it should also go to conservation. Because of course the first paragraph in this, to me, all the changes do not meet the first paragraph, and the most important is purpose. So I'm hoping those things. It concerns me greatly, and I stopped going to those meetings, so I appreciate your patience. But most of the time I stopped going because they weren't talking about us. Their focus was on farming, forestry, making the lots 3 acres or less, and making farming $1,000 a year. So I stopped going because I appreciate your efforts.
So when I talk to Evan, I'll find out if the Conservation Commission is included in that.
Because if it is, you'll find Jordan Tate, who's the current chair, to be outstanding, and she is, I think, an environmental engineer by training.
Are you still on that commission?
I am, yeah, I'm your transferring between, and we haven't been notified of that. So
Okay.
we have a meeting next week, so she might be waiting.
I tend to read the newspaper cover to cover, to my chagrin sometimes. But the mayor had a piece that, if you haven't seen it, it's worth looking at. Because at least it says where he's coming from. What his pitch on why this is advisable, necessary, and so forth. It really doesn't address water issues, at least not in this one. So if you haven't seen it, perhaps if anybody wants a copy, I'll be happy to.
When was it in the paper,
Last
John?
couple of days, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think it was this last Sunday.
It's on the online edition as well under opinions.
That's what I said, yeah.
What?
It's online under opinions, right?
Okay.
John, since you do read it cover to cover, I thought I saved, and I didn't go back to look, that the mayor had written an earlier one, that the heading was, again, something like, you know, we can't do nothing, you have to take action kind of tone. And was there an earlier newspaper article?
I didn't start looking for these kinds of things until more recently when I was reading things more closely.
I may have that saved, if I, or I can find it.
It's worth reading because it gives you, there's a tone, and so. So next would be the other committee.
Right.
Ad hoc committee.
Right, formation of the mayor's ad hoc committee on water quality. Again, I believe there's a copy of that in your packet. Yes, it's kind of in the middle there, but this is there was a meeting on March 4th. This is again on the Auburn side. The mayor was looking to put together an ad hoc committee to address the feasibility and advantages to building a water filtration plant for Lake Auburn, and the ability of current programs and efforts to maintain the existing filtration waiver. This was addressed by the city council that evening, and there was a vote taken to table the formation of that committee. That's going to be addressed again on Monday, March 18th. So that's something that will be addressed. I'm not sure where that's going to go, but it's a hot topic, and I've been asked to give some information on that, and I've submitted an information packet that I believe you all received by email. Probably didn't print it out. There's like 60 pages or something. But it was requested to provide the cost, any studies that we've done on filtration, and if you've read through that at all, I mean, the joint efforts of Lewis and Auburn looking at filtration goes back to the early 90s. We've never had a filtration plant designed specifically for us because, I mean, we know it's going to be in the millions of dollars. So it's always been a consideration, but not a primary consideration for the different things we are trying to do to keep the lake of high quality. But we have done a fair amount of research on it, and we've done quite a bit of recent research as well into some of the current costs. Going back, I think the earliest one that was really done was back in 2004 and 5, where the range was from up to $50 million. Since that time, there's been improvements in filter plants, but at the time that estimate was done, it was assumed all we needed was a membrane filter, but at that time there were no algae issues in the lake, and that probably would have been adequate, but since then we know we do have algae, so we're going to need a two-step process in order to address it if we ever do in that form. I don't know. Well, again, this is just an update, and we'll see where it goes. If I know that on the Auburn side, our trustees were supportive of having this go forward. We agreed that it's fine to find your independent numbers if you'd like, and we would stand by to give them information if they requested it. So this is nothing that the district was opposing to happen, but we'll just have to wait and see where it goes.
So you came up with an estimated cost of around $35 million.
Yeah, I did. It's kind of a variable thing. One of the recent estimates I got was from Wright Pierce Engineers. They put it in the $45 to $47 million range. That was based upon a 16 MGD plant. And we haven't really talked internally about that yet either. Is it going to be a 16 million gallon a day, 12 million gallon a day?
20 million gallon a day.
Yeah, yeah.
But you also then took that number and had a projected cost for the increase for water rates
Right, just speaking for Auburn, if we were going to bond our half of $35 million, our water rates, and we need to, we estimated that the annual operating cost is gonna be $1.5 million a year. But if we bonded the cost of that plan, our water rates would raise 50%, in order to fund that filter plant.
Plus the increased rates for fire protection.
Right, our fire protection rates would go from 670,000 a year to a little over $1 million, and that's one of the double whammies of increasing your revenue. Your fire protection rates go up as well.
Lewiston went through a similar analysis. Ed Barrett gave it last night and had run the numbers at a 30 to 44% increase based on this current estimate, as well as the fire protection would go from like 780,000 upwards to 920, pushing $1 million just for fire. So the reality is, you know, it's something. It's an investment of several years for design, and like Sid said, several million to design. And as he pointed out in one of his memos, which I think was spot on, is you only know the actual cost to design and build it when you actually do it. And it can be debated on both sides, high and low, but when you actually get into the specifics, and we know, I think it's kind of universal, the dirtier, the less clean the water is, the more expensive treatment gets. So knowing where we're at and depending on what, you know, relaxations we'd be having on development standards and activities, that would just add on to what is proposed.
Is Auburn still one of the lowest water rates in the state?
Yes, we are. We're in the lower third.
6?
About 6. We used to be second or fourth, and now I think we're sixth.
We were at one time first too, were we not?
Well, it's a water based on people our size, similar to size. It's not really fair to compare a 19 unit
Yeah.
with a.
Yeah, we're in the low, definitely the lower. Well, I'd say the lower quarter of
Oh yeah.
water rates in the state, and Lewiston too.
Yep.
And it's all due to the surface water supply we have.
I remember John Storr telling about Cascade Fiber being attracted to Auburn just because of the water rates.
Right.
And I think,
So we've been, just last week, we've been trying to pull our big users out to assess what it also means, you know, fire protection, what it also means to our larger industrial users too, in schools, and a lot of implications there. Back to your flavor thing, I think another thing that might be instructive before Monday night, if you have a chance, is go to Great Falls, Great Falls TV, and just watch the kind of the dynamic of the last meeting regarding some of the discussion around the other, setting up the committee and just that whole, it's just an interesting dynamic of the Auburn Council. So it also has several flavors, so it's kind of interesting. So like prep you for what you watch the following Monday night.
And part of that is, to my mind, evidenced by the charge. The ad hoc committee in this piece, that the resolve is charged with certain functions and duties. And the phrasing of those, the framing of them should be looked at. Perhaps staff could give us some guidance between now and next meeting as to what you guys think of each of these individual challenges and how they're worded, because the wording seems to be aimed at a result.
Mm-hmm. That's evident in watching the council.
I guess that's
And that's why I bring it back.
on that question, and that's why I raised it first on our egg zone thing, because I have trouble with the mix here too. I know we could say, gee, I wish we weren't perceived to be reactionary, because some of this has been talked before, particularly in the water district. We could be proactive, but I'm very concerned, though, because its name implies water quality, and then we immediately go to filtration, which is to me a method of protecting water or a device. But I think we need to step back, and my hope is that the public and others, including us, ask the City Council of Auburn to step back, because the real question is, what are we going to do to have high quality, safe drinking water for the next 50 years.
At a reasonable cost.
And, well, I don't even add the reasonable cost because, very honestly, safe drinking water
Yeah.
to me is at any cost.
But if there are two avenues, you want the lead, and
Right,
the equal
right.
result,
But that
right?
would,
You want the-
that to me, that's how, so you frame the bigger question. And one of the questions has gotta be affordability,
Mhm.
access, resources, I mean, fine, they may say, well, freeze your lake over every year, really? That kind of, or put snow on it. So one for me is going back to the, if this remains, then the decision was made by somebody else, because they're saying, filtration's the answer, and here we go. One is the question of the drinking water. The second should be that the committee make up to me. If this is as important as I think it is, and others do too, it should not be an ad hoc mayor. Should be serious enough that the Auburn City Council should be addressing it. The Auburn City Council should establish the committee. The Auburn City Council should follow their own appointment process so that you don't get hand-picked, preconceived decisions, which, based on the appointments that I'm aware of, they have all publicly stated what they want.
Well, no, I agree.
And then the last was they need to educate the community and the council, and then engage them in the process, because watching that video, the questions that came up from members of the council, including those that I would say were friendly towards the lake water, really didn't have a clue. They were asking questions that I thought, in fairness to us, I thought were already clear and have nothing to do with quality drinking water. So I'm hoping our leadership will, next Monday night, present a thing that backs it up to the real question.
But I think none of this is gonna happen overnight, it just simply cannot. I was just wondering about your phrasing, you mentioned an ad hoc mayor, you mean an ad hoc mayor's committee?
I mean, yeah.
You said
Yes,
ad
sorry
hoc-
about that. I forgot our. I
Ad
didn't.
hoc mayors over in
Right.
Lewiston.
I apologize. Yeah, the mayor's committee. I know that our mayor has used that ability that he has to create committees, and I'm surprised at both the frequency and the lack of involvement of the city council. He's doing what he thinks
Well,
is
part of
best.
that falls on us too.
Right, that he thinks
To
is
step forward
right.
and communicate.
I do also wonder what the charter provides. I'm not as familiar with the Auburn charter as I am with the Lewiston, I think appropriately so I'm not sure that is.
It does.
within-
It is one of the 7 authorities to establish.
Yeah, and appoint.
But there
folks
is
to
no,
it,
well,
right?
it's his, so he can do whatever he
Yeah.
wants. But it doesn't automatically bring staff support, and it doesn't bring funding. And in the past, as I sat on the council, I remember being told that more than once,
Okay.
and I wasn't the mayor. And so I question, because there have been many in Auburn, and we're spending a lot of money on those kinds of committees.
On the ad
Again,
hocs.
well within his right. I take the strong position. It's one of the 7 authorities outlined in charter. But staffing and resources
Mhm.
are not addressed in the charter. And so those things fall to the council by their authority,
Mhm.
I think. Or is it to the?
It's interesting, that we have not heard anything publicly from the Lewiston side.
So we had a workshop on this last night.
Oh, you did?
Yes. Kevin, do you wanna tell us about it, or do you want me to?
Sure, I'll say the technical piece. So Ed
That
went
was
through
expensive.
his presentation and addressed, I think, a lot of the issues that are summarized in your packet of where the city of Auburn is, where we are as a watershed commission, where the lake is, and the standing issues that you've all been talking about, and asked the council, what do you wish to do at this time? And I think the consensus from the council was
that this is not actionable at the moment, and I expressed that perhaps this body would be the best to advise on moving forward. I was not asked to present anything specific to this body, but I think the consensus was, why are we trying to move forward on this? I was named in the paper as a member of the Lewiston ad hoc committee, but surprise. But obviously circumstances have changed in the city of Lewiston so it would be a different person making those appointments if we were to move forward with that. And I think there would not be the same appointments.
It would be interesting to hear in the fullness of time what the city council has to say, because Lewiston is in a different position with regard to these issues, because it has not a whole lot to gain from some of the changes, and considerably a great deal to lose.
I think the fact that the amount needed to be bonded would need to go to referendum is a key consideration in Lewiston.
Referendum?
Because of the dollar amount of the bond.
Isn't that just Heather?
That's not how we're doing for that currently.
No.
Things could change.
I like
No.
that.
You were asking about the on the Auburn side, the Tiz was mentioning charter. You might have been talking about city charter.
Right,
The
city
water,
charter.
the
Yeah,
water
yeah, city
district
charter,
charter that formed the Auburn Water District back in the early 20s. The only real mention of city involvement in that charter that's significant is that if the water district is going to take out a bond, we need City of Auburn approval, and the makeup of our trustees. One of the trustees by the charter is the mayor, and traditionally the mayor is assigned a city councilor, but the mayor is a voting member on our trustee board, and the city of Auburn assigns our trustees to our trustee board. So that's the only real city connection in terms of. There's no other real oversight over the district from the city. That's the extent of it.
I will say one point of clarification during the workshop last night was who has the rights to the water in the lake, and it was made clear to us that it is the Auburn Water District trustees, district period, and City of Lewiston. So the conversation about how City of Auburn is involved was a question last night, and it was clarified, thankfully, thanks to these folks.
And this commission has some broad powers, but they really come from the charter, Auburn Water District.
Okay, so and perhaps it doesn't need to be said, but these issues, although technically not tied, the ag zone changes and tail pond and the water filtration, I mean, they all come as of a piece at some point, because they all conceivably impact upon the lake individually and collectively. And so I think we need to keep that in focus, and perhaps we need to keep telling people that we all have a common goal, which is economic prosperity and clean water. And the two do go hand in glove. I mean, you can't have one without the other.
I think from again, newspaper, community conversations, and that there seems to be some impression that if you filtrate the water, it's going to fix the algae problem. Even I know that won't happen. It will open up the possibility for more residential housing, and that in my personal opinion at this time would be that should not happen, because the dirtier the water, the more costly it is to fix. So if we have a filtration plant, it would be like driving a big car. You're not going to take it out into the fields just because you can. And so we've got to make sure that, well, I'm not technically competent for the scientific, but we're not going to say, oh, okay, we're going to have a filtration plant and all problems are resolved. We've still got to protect the source. And that's why I keep coming back. The real question that should be on everybody's mind, whether we're talking egg zone or filtration, is how do we ensure safe quality drinking water for Lewiston and Auburn for the next 50 years? Because part of the reason some of this has come up is people in our past have done a good job. Whether it's protecting the water or protecting the land, they have done a good job, and I hope I am not part of the decade that messed it all up.
Another thing we talked about last night quite a bit, and Kevin and I talked quite a bit, is we're focused on phosphorus because it's the biggie, right? And it's the one that relates to filtration. but changes in land use have many other chemical and physical impacts too. One of the reasons Kevin is so successful of driving a good product to our customers is we have a consistent product and a consistent source that Kevin can manipulate to provide a consistent product. But once land use changes, there's pesticides, herbicides, we talked about high white black liquor heading to the mills. I think we need to make sure we're not just focusing on phosphorus. There are a lot of other things that development, and even if the filtration could counter some of them, not all of them, but some of them, there's still a lot of others that changes in land use will have other impacts.
Well, that's to me part of it. We need to educate the community and then engage them. Because again, other successors that staff has achieved through outreach and that are very specific targets,
Yes.
The horse farm. And how we do that, I think that if you ask the, 16 counselors, approximately 16 councils total, how many of them would be aware of that work and its success and its need to continue regardless of what other 12 steps we may take. So I think there's a lot of education that has to happen before anyone takes action on something as costly and serious and long-lasting. So safe, quality drinking water, 50 years is the goal.
Minimum 50 years.
Minimum, yes.
Give it a chance.
Sid,
John-
Taylor Pond? Oh,
Real quick, it is a possibility that this group can do a resolved with their message to both AVCOG committees. So that's something you can always think about doing. It may allow you to clear up the purpose and any other questions and so forth. So you would have that as an option. And that if that nothing else, it puts it in writing what this group's concerns are.
it would be perhaps my preference for a starting point is better communication and resolve sometimes hardened positions.
Right.
And so perhaps we can wait. I don't think it's going anyplace fast. By the same token, we can't just sit around waiting for the train to take off.
Yeah, and I'll have an update for you next month too. We're meeting next month.
Right.
And we'll hopefully all be in your audience, as the three of you. I guess you're speaking and you're going to get others to sit beside you for some.
Right holders.
I do want to just note, because I was surprised when I read the resolve from Auburn. Once it starts, it's off like a rocket, it seems like, with a 6-month time period. And so hopefully we can give some clarity next Monday and then have our own plan for action.
The Taylor Pond.
Sure. This is just, I get another update. I think it's in your packet. The Taylor Pond group. I just put that in there just to kind of say what it is and what it isn't. And I hope that didn't cause some confusion. This was a petition that a lot of people around Taylor Pond put in to send to the city council. You can see there's a number of signatures here. And I think the bottom line of this one, it was, to boil it down and not bore you, this was put in because of a development that happened out at Lost Valley. There was an outfit there who was putting in some industry, and there was perceived that was causing some pollution to Lapham Brook. So this group got together, put together this petition, sent it to the city, and if you read through it, it talks about a lot of things that you shouldn't be doing around Taylor Pond, and also mentioned around Lake Auburn. And I think what they did is they kind of admitted themselves that they kind of overstepped what they were trying to do with this. In order to make this thing go away, they ended up having to formally submit it to the Auburn City Council. It went through 2 readings and it was rejected. And I think this group is now kind of backed off with what this was trying to, or what it said. And they're now pursuing some grants to do some remediation to Lapham Brook. So whoops, sorry about that. Bottom line is this is it's gone away. It's not going to be an issue.
Elsa, you got me to check mine anyway.
Is this the one that went through the planning board first before it went to council, and planning
Yes,
board
correct,
denied it or
correct.
Voted not to advance?
Yes, procedurally, it went from the planning board
With
directly
us.
to the city council, and I don't think it was going to go ahead, but in order to make it officially not go ahead, it had to go to the city council.
Well, that's good news, because I was present at that one.
Okay.
Weren't you there too? I know,
Um,
anyways, and it really was, you're actually right, but they kept dragging the water, Lake Auburn into it, and it was strictly a development thing.
Yeah, I think it clearly had some unintended consequences. So it's bottom line is it's dead and gone. So just an FYI. If there's any other questions on that? Yep.
Is that the Norton?
Yes. In your packet too, this came out in January. You all remember when Dr. Norton gave his dissertation on the sediment sampling, the long course sediment sampling. This is just a summary of his findings that they gave us back in January. There's a lot of it's a very brief technical dissertation on some of the things they did, but if you look at the recommendations, that's kind of an important part, and it's something we all know, but it's kind of good to hear it from someone of his caliber, if you will. Continue to work with the landowners to reduce phosphorus input to the lake, prevent erosion in the watershed. Don't raise the lake level where it's going to be bringing more of the Presumpscot Formation into the lake. Continue limiting speedboats, talking about some climate change issues. Continue monitoring the stream inlets. And then number 7, he was a big part of our decision to move ahead and say, yes, alum is the option. And at this time, he was talking about, if you're going to consider alum, which he subsequently did in some meetings we had, how to go about doing that. So again, this is just in there as an FYI. It's his findings that he had. So that's concluded this long course sediment project.
Sid, it mentions 100 meters or 328 feet of elevation above the lake. That is the primary source of phosphorus. Is there some way to get an overlay or something so it's easy to see where 328 feet falls?
Yes, we can do that in GIS. And I believe we've done other analysis in GIS.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd be curious
Soil
to see
mapping.
just where that is.
Yeah, we had several years ago that we did some soil mapping as well as some contours, and this can tie in with that.
Good.
Yep. We'll work on that and bring that to the next meeting.
Yeah, I thought this made some terrific reading to the extent I can understand what he's talking about. And perhaps those of you who are better qualified, you guys and Dale, could explain to the rest of us what he's talking about. Because the significance seems to be that there's a lot of phosphorus at the bottom of this lake.
So I guess getting back to Tiz's question a couple items ago, the event that happened in 2012 started in the upper water column, but because of the mixing that happened during the large storm that came in, it actually moved and we had the oxygen decline, and that's what happened in the deep hole. So that's what happens whether we have an aluminum-based sediment or an iron-based sediment. And that's really the crux of what Dr. Norton did, was trying to figure out what's the aluminum to iron ratio and how stable is the phosphorus that's been deposited there. The second piece was, and obviously in 2012 what happened is we went anox and freed up a bunch of phosphorus that was locked in iron-bound sediment. And that's not what we want to happen. The second piece is native soils, and the Presumpscot actually has phosphorus that, if you remember the mineral apatite, is highly erodible and present. So that's why some of the studies have been done up Townsend Brook to figure out whether any phosphorus wells or is any Presumpscot up in there that may be releasing during large rain events, during type of soil disturbance activities that would be normally associated with farming or ag, whatever. So I think it all ties back to, you were asking what are we doing? Well, further investigation of Watershed, we're not finding what we call point source. There's no bad player out there that's leaking and leaching and eroding and causing phosphorus to come into the lake. It's all background. It's what we call non-point source. So that's why it's very difficult to get, and we're going after that and looking at it. So it involves more testing along Spring Road, like we've done, some other areas. We've got some ideas, but we're not really ready to roll that out with recommendations yet. But the big one that I think we all agree on is alum treatment. So locking up and taking out the phosphorus in the water column, and looking at the lake. I think Dale had said it a couple weeks ago. You look at it as a big bathtub, and you've got so much phosphorus coming in and not enough coming out, and it's continuing to concentrate. So by doing the alum treatment, stripping it of the water column, we're binding that up, and we're giving us time to go after the non-point source. I mean, we're doing a low enough dose. We're not trying to lock up that deep sediment that's iron in the iron phase. If we don't let it go anoxic, it's going to be bound up, and that's what we're looking to do. So that's about as layman's term as I get. That's as complicated as I can get. Any more than that, we want to bring Dr. Norton back in, have a discussion unless Sid wants to.
Well, let's go to Alan. Let's follow up on that issue. Are there examples of lakes like ours with sediment like ours and a size like ours that have experimented with alum and done so successfully?
There were four lakes in Maine that have had it done successfully. Some recently. It goes all the way back. I think the first one that was done was Chickawaukee Lake in Rockland back in 1982. They had it done, and there's a ton of data, a ton of research on that. At the time, DEP did that, and they paid for it, and they continue to monitor it. And that lake is, I've never seen it. I think Mike has, right? You've been there?
No, I personally haven't seen it, but I talked with a colleague who used to be that Chickawaukee Lake was a water supply for the city of Rockland, and he was the water quality manager when the alum was actually applied, and he lives and recreates in that area. And he said to this day, that lake is crystal clear.
I used to run the ferry service for DOT, so I drive by the lake all the time, and there's no sign of.
It's right off 17 as you're coming into Rockland.
Yeah, it's on the left.
So there was
And a fair amount of recreation in that lake.
Right.
As far as, you mean boating or?
Yeah, boating. There are some houses around one side.
It's no
Or
longer
two there.
drinking water.
I don't believe so. I think it's the other reservoir they use now. I'm not completely
Right.
sure. I forget what the name
Mirror
of it
Lake.
is.
Mirror Lake and Grassy
Yeah,
Pond.
which
Yeah.
has no
Right.
development.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Is that a
Didn't
deep
they
hole?
do that,
I'm not sure how deep that is.
It was like 50 or 60.
didn't
I don't
they
think
do
it's
that
like-
at China Lake?
There was one done in Belgrade.
East Pond.
East Pond up in Belgrade was done last year. There was another one too in the Belgrade area. The name escapes me.
China was done a while ago.
China was
decades.
a mess
It was a
before
long
they did
time
it.
ago, and I used to live right up until 4 years ago. I lived on the shores of just down the road from China Lake in Vassarboro.
Oh.
It came in phases. And when I was a consultant, we did the drilling and a lot of the geotechnical for the filtration plant that the Waterville Water District had to put in. And because that was, like Kevin said, that's the older technology. But getting that thing up and running consistently and producing good product without having to, it took them a long time. And it's 25 years later, but still, there's a lot of, that isn't simple either. And Kevin and I were talking today, if you go to Waterville, every now and then you'll get a slug of stuff through. And it's not only just getting through the filter, but a lot of that biologic oxygen demand, a lot of the organics, and at least some of the nutrients are getting through. And I think they get a lot more flock on their pipes. We get some, but we have relatively clean pipes. So there are all kinds of other, be interesting to talk to like Waterville Water District and like some of them about how that filtration plant has worked for us. Much smaller than ours, but it's still a big plant.
How old is it?
We drilled
94.
Yeah.
Kennebec was 94.
Yeah, because I drilled probably in 90 or 92 for the foundation for it. So yeah, fun time.
Cocknoagan Lake in Monmouth had an alum treatment done 20 years ago. They've actually reapplied. I think they're going to do another one this coming summer, but it's lasted 20 years for them.
China's basin's like Auburn. It's 105, 160 deep on the deep hole in China. The basin portion of the lake.
So it may have been Dr. Ewing's education opportunity with us that she talked about sources and location and how most of the sediment is actually at the bottom of the lake because we've had it over time. And so the only surprise I had in reading all this is that we're only going to do the column, not also do the bottom. Of course, she knows you all know what you're doing, but that surprised me, and I guess it was a positive. It would be less expensive, and risk is not the right word, but coming from healthcare where you have to give all of the risk, fewer risks that would be involved. I think though we have a community need to educate them, because for most, they probably heard the word phosphorus. It's not a good word in most places, laundry, stuff like that, again, what everybody knows. So maybe we need some education opportunities. And that's why I thought if I had one thing to change, I wish we would have been more insistent in making sure that Dr. Norton and Dr. Ewing's stuff had been done at our public location where we could have recorded it and shared it. Remember, one got canceled and got moved here. So as we look to the future, that should be part of our plan. But I think if you could educate the community the way you've been working on us, it will be a much easier conversation.
Well, I think to strike on that, I think Laura and Eric have been doing a phenomenal job getting with that technology. And we've talked about whether we're doing GoPros or, whether we have the tablet or what forum so that we can start getting some video and putting some things out there, at least a matter of record for future reference, if not live streaming and whatnot.
Is all that research now available for publication?
That's right.
I think Dr. Ewing is still in
that's
processing
not
her data, and that's not public yet until she publishes.
The Norton
Dr.
report is not.
Dr. Norton has provided us with what he can, but his information is also still pending.
Holly's speaking tomorrow, isn't she, at Great Falls?
No, next Thursday.
21st.
Next Thursday?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
for those of you who missed that, she's speaking at noon next Thursday, not this Thursday.
At the library,
At
right?
LPL, right?
Lewiston Library,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's at the Great Falls Forum.
Yes.
I guess for those that, one thing that was added on the end of our discussion that we had in Lewiston was Dr. Norton's grad student actually presented something on phosphorus transportation during snow and snowmelt, and that was huge. I mean, that the realization and what they discovered was really key. I mean, we always think of it during the thaw and the rain events and erosion like that, but there's deposition happening, and it's uptake, it's frozen in the snow, and I think the order of magnitude on the amount that is actually transported during snow melt, it's like 7 to 10 times what you get in a normal runoff event.
Can we get him to speak here?
We could actually look at doing that, getting
Well, I
that
would ask
presentation
if you
again. So.
spoken at a time and place where public could attend, not just us.
So, I think getting to that point and back to what our charge is here is, watershed protection, not releasing or underdoing some of the restrictions we have on development, because what Dale's point earlier, more activity in the watershed, more opportunity for runoff. It happens all times of the year. We know that a lot of the green improvement they're looking to do, even if you went with a green development that has rain gardens and all the wonderful plants that do natural uptake, do anything after it freezes from December until fall, and maybe even after until there's good growth and probably into June. So there's a lot of nutrients during that time period that can still get into the watershed and into the lake.
So I would support her idea, just expand it. The other thing I wonder if we could do, because I don't watch them since city council meetings, is could you get the snippet, he can tell you how, snippet of that, and share it with us through email, so we don't have to look at the whole thing? Because it sounds like you cover, I know, what can I tell you? I try to represent typical residents.
So you want the executive summary version?
Well, no, I was thinking of literally the video. You can cut pieces out and send them to us, and that sounds like you did a great job, so might as well share it for us, unless you watched it. Did you watch it?
Following program was edited.
I served for 6 years.
Is this the least council presentation that's being asked about?
Sid knows.
So were you asking about the actual city council
Yep.
from last night?
Yeah, yes, if you talk to Sid, I know he knows how to get it done, and it's very helpful, because I think we would all watch it, based on what you said.
And
just because Kevin doesn't have a lot to do tomorrow, we should
Right.
ask him to do the one we did a couple weeks ago too, that talked about the alum treatment too.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
try to get both of them.
That'd be great.
Sorry, Kevin.
They're on the city YouTube page.
Oh, if they
I
are,
was forwarding it on
if
the
they
minutes,
are,
yeah.
if they're on
Yeah.
our YouTube page, then that must be easy to, I
You
was
can
waiting
just
for
drag your
them-
mouse across the bottom until you see Kevin's face.
Right,
That's all.
and then stop.
Oh,
Just Kevin's face.
but it's the
Well,
whole,
I know that other guy.
it's the whole. Well, if there's a simple way for us to do it, that would be helpful and share.
Really
Sure.
Really simple and share.
Are we done with the discussion?
Lunch and learn.
And so at this point, I'd like to have an open session to see if Casey's anything to say, since he's the only member of the public.
Oh, I'm totally fine.
Okay, so hearing none, we move on to open session for the commission.
Okay, I would propose that we have a standing rule that if there is no school in Auburn, there's no watershed meeting. So it's not this, 3 of us came and we were sent home. I mean, not that that's a big deal, but it just makes it so much easier if there's a standard rule. And
I'll
then
second it.
our bylaws say 1 month later, so it's, we know that.
So it's been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion?
Well, the only thing I would add is if there is not a quorum, that notice be given
We do
at
that.
least by noon.
We do that as soon as we can
Well,
discover that.
probably 2:48. That's better.
They were trying.
I never saw it, I got it.
But I didn't see it, so.
Yeah, I would support that. That was-
We had a quorum at noon.
At noon. So do you want that added as part of the,
She'll add that as
Well,
part
yeah,
of
sure.
the,
Yeah, I mean,
movement? Okay.
So
Okay,
no,
so
no,
the final vote, the final motion is
Two.
no school,
No school, no meeting, and if there's no quorum to be notified by noon, oh, that's hard, you can't do that to administration. Notified as soon as possible.
That's better because quite frankly, these things move.
Yes.
And you said no school in Auburn because we're assuming the meeting's in Auburn. Because there have been days where one city has had school and the other side hasn't.
Not as much this year.
Right.
All in favor? Opposed? It's passed. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I have a couple of
Oh,
my
I'm sorry.
commissioners. One is, to my knowledge, and it's not for tonight, but future one, we do not have a formal communication policy. This Auburn Water District does. I assume the city of Lewiston has something. Maybe we should add that on our future tasks. Because I think in the coming months in particular, public communication will be frequent and we want to be clear, like, who speaks and it's one voice and how do we do it kind of thing. So again, not for action today, but if we could. And the last is Sid did a really nice report in here in response to the city manager. And I just want to know, Sid, you got an email from the manager. Thank you very much for putting on May 5th. Was that the first request you'd gotten for information?
Yes.
Thank you. Because the public record and city council said contrary. So I'd like it in our records that was the first request and you responded in 2 business
March
days. I'm sorry?
March. You said May. March 5th.
March 5th. Yes.
And the other thing I had was there was a snowmobile accident on the right.
Yeah.
Person's okay.
Yes.
Didn't they early?
Right.
Yeah.
Boston, I think.
Yeah, I didn't personally check. I know Erica called and checked on that.
Was he on the trail or not?
No.
No, there's no
it's on
trail.
the lake.
He was on the lake.
In a nice wreck.
Was it close to your house, John?
It was not too far from the house. I didn't see it. But he obviously took a heck of a tumble. Because he hit an ice bridge.
Right. Yeah. No fuel, no fuel.
I understand there was no fuel released.
All right.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Will we adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you all.
Did you say there was no fuel spill?
No fuel spill.
No.
Oh, good.
Can you, Kevin, and Casey stick around with some talking points?
Oh, my God.